Welcome to sleepy Japan. Tonight, we drift together into a quiet story from Japan, a tale shaped by stillness, tradition, and the soft rhythm of night. Before we begin, take a slow breath in and exhale gently. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your hands rest. Let your thoughts begin to settle as the world around you softens into calm. Imagine a peaceful evening, light from a simple paper lantern drifting across the room, a cool breeze moving just beyond the window. And in the distance, a single temple bell echoing through the night. Each sound carries you deeper into rest. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to be. Just breathe and let the night open gently around you. Feel peace moving through your body, from your chest to your shoulders, to the quiet rhythm of your breath. The world outside grows silent. Only the sound of your breathing remains, and the soft promise of dreams waiting to unfold. Now, as the moon rises above the hills and the night deepens, let us begin tonight's story. The Fox's Wedding. Long, long ago, when the world moved slowly beneath wide skies, and the seasons turned with quiet certainty, there lived a young white fox named Fukuyémon. His coat was pure as winter snow, soft as moonlight falling through pines, and his eyes held the gentle wisdom of the forest. He lived in the hills beyond the village, where the bamboo groves whispered ancient secrets, and the morning mist gathered like silk in the valleys below. Now, the time had come, as it comes to all young creatures, when Fukuyémon had reached the fitting age. One spring morning, with cherry blossoms drifting past the shoji screens, he shaved off his forelock in the traditional manner, marking his passage into adulthood. And as he gazed at his reflection in the still water of the garden pond, watching the petals settle around him like pink snow, he began to think, as young foxes do, of taking to himself a beautiful bride. His father, the old fox, whose muzzle had grown silver with the passing years, watched his son with quiet pride. The old one had lived long, had seen many seasons turn, had known joy and sorrow in equal measure, and now his time for rest had come. "My son," he said one evening, as they sat together beneath the plum trees, the last light of day painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, "I have decided to give up my inheritance to you." The words fell softly, like leaves in autumn, carrying with them the weight of tradition, the passing of one generation to the next. "I shall retire into private life now," the old fox continued, his voice gentle as wind through grass, "and you shall take your place as the head of our family." Fukuyémon bowed deeply, his heart swelling with gratitude and love, for he understood the trust his father had placed in him, the honor and responsibility that came with this gift. "I shall not disappoint you, father," he said quietly. And the old fox smiled, knowing his son's words were true. And so, from that day forward, young Fukuyémon labored hard and earnestly, working to increase his patrimony, to honor his father's trust. He rose each morning before the sun, when the world was still wrapped in the soft grey of dawn, and worked until the stars emerged like silver flowers in the night sky. He tended the rice fields that belonged to his family, watched over the forests where they made their home, and studied the old ways, learning the wisdom that had been passed down through countless generations. The months passed, spring flowing into summer, summer ripening into autumn, and autumn settling into winter's quiet embrace. And all the while, as he worked, Fukuyémon thought of the bride he might one day take, wondering where she might be, what her face might look like, whether her heart would be gentle and kind. Now, it happened, as such things often do in the world of foxes, that in a famous old family, one known far and wide for their nobility and grace, there lived a beautiful young lady fox. Her name was spoken in whispers, carried on the wind from mountain to valley, for her beauty was such that it seemed almost magical, almost unreal. Her fur was said to shine like copper in sunlight, to shimmer like amber touched by flame, and her eyes, her eyes, held depths of kindness that could calm even the wildest storm. The fame of her jewel-like charms, her gentle manner, her grace and intelligence spread far and wide across the land. And when Fukuyémon heard tell of this remarkable lady fox, his heart stirred, as hearts do when they recognize something, some possibility, some destiny waiting to unfold. "Father," he said one evening, as they sat together, watching the fireflies dance, "I have heard of a young lady in the famous family of the Eastern Hills, and I wish, if it pleases you, to seek her hand in marriage." The old fox nodded slowly, remembering his own youth, his own bride, the beginning of his own journey. "Then let us make the proper arrangements," he said, "for such matters must be handled with care and respect, in accordance with the old ways." And so, messengers were sent, travelling through mountain passes, across rivers that sang over smooth stones, to the house of the famous family. The proposal was made with all proper courtesy, and after much consideration, after the family had made their inquiries, learning of Fukuyémon's character and standing, a meeting was arranged between the two young foxes. The day arrived, bright and clear, with autumn colours painting the hillsides in shades of crimson and gold. Fukuyémon dressed with great care, his white fur brushed until it gleamed, his manner calm though his heart beat quickly beneath his chest. The meeting took place in a garden, beneath an ancient maple tree, its leaves falling like gentle rain around them. And when the young lady fox appeared, stepping softly along the stone path, her grace and beauty were even more remarkable than the stories had told. They spoke quietly together, of small things at first, the turning of the seasons, the beauty of the autumn leaves, the sound of water flowing over rocks. And as they spoke, they found in each other a kindred spirit, a gentle understanding, a harmony of hearts. There was not a fault to be found on either side, for in truth, they were well matched in every way, in character and temperament, in kindness and grace. And so, after the proper time had passed, the preliminaries were settled, and preparations began for the wedding. Now, in the world of foxes, as in the world of humans, there are traditions to be honoured, ceremonies to be observed, gifts to be given and received. From the bridegroom's house to the bride's, wedding presents were sent, each one chosen with care, each one wrapped in silk and tied with ceremonial cords. There were bolts of fine fabric, shimmering like water in moonlight, and dishes of delicate porcelain, painted with scenes of bamboo and plum blossoms. There were boxes of tea, fragrant and precious, and jars of honey, golden as afternoon sun. The messenger who carried these gifts arrived at the bride's house with great ceremony, offering congratulatory speeches, his words flowing like poetry, full of respect and good wishes. And the person deputed to receive these gifts acknowledged them with equal grace, speaking words of gratitude and appreciation, honoring the generosity of the bridegroom's family. The bearers of the gifts, as was customary, received their fee in copper cash and bowed deeply before departing, their part in the ceremony complete. When all the preliminary ceremonies had been concluded, when all was in readiness, an auspicious day was chosen, selected with care according to the ancient calendar, for the bride to go to her husband's house. The day arrived, and it was a day such as only the foxes know, a day that would be remembered in stories and songs. For as the wedding procession formed, as the bride was carried forth in solemn dignity, a shower of rain began to fall, while all the while the sun continued to shine, bright and warm in the clear blue sky. This, the foxes say, is the greatest blessing, this rain falling through sunshine, this marriage of earth and heaven, of water and light. The fox's bride goes to her husband's house, they whispered, watching the procession pass, and the old foxes nodded, remembering, knowing this was a sign of great fortune. The bride wore robes of silk, embroidered with pine trees and cranes, symbols of longevity and good fortune, and her fur shone with an inner light, as if she carried the glow of happiness within her. She was carried in a palanquin, borne by strong young foxes, and around her walked attendants, carrying lanterns though it was day, for such is the tradition. The procession moved slowly, with great dignity, through the forest paths, past streams that sang their ancient songs, beneath trees that had witnessed countless such journeys. And all along the way, other foxes came out to watch, to offer their blessings, to scatter flower petals on the path. The rain continued to fall, soft and gentle, each drop catching the sunlight, transforming into tiny prisms of colour, red and gold and violet. And in this way, through this blessed rain and sunshine, the bride came at last to her new home. Fukuyémon stood waiting, his heart full, watching as the procession approached, seeing his bride for the first time as she would be now, not as a visitor, but as the one who would share his life, his home, his future. The ceremonies of drinking wine, the sansankudo, 3 sips from 3 cups, were performed with great solemnity. First, the groom drank, then the bride, then the groom again, binding them together, cup by cup, sip by sip, their destinies intertwining like threads in silk. After these sacred ceremonies, the bride changed her dress, removing her formal wedding robes, donning the garments of her new life, marking her transformation, her passage into this new chapter. And then, the wedding was concluded, without let or hindrance, amid singing and dancing and merrymaking. Music filled the air, the sounds of flutes and drums, of voices raised in celebration, and all the foxes danced, their white and red and silver forms, moving like spirits in the lantern light. Food was served on lacquered trays, rice cakes and sweet bean paste, chestnuts and persimmons, and sake flowed freely, warming hearts already warm with joy. The old grandfather fox, Fukuyémon's father, sat watching with tears of happiness in his eyes, remembering his own wedding day, seeing the cycle continue, generation flowing into generation, like water flowing into water. And so, the bride and bridegroom began their life together, and from the very first, they lived lovingly in harmony and peace. Their days were filled with simple joys, working side by side, tending their home, caring for their small plot of earth. In spring, they planted, watching the green shoots push up through the dark soil, marveling at the persistence of life. In summer, they tended, working in the long, warm days, resting in the cool evenings, listening to the cicadas sing. In autumn, they harvested, gathering the fruits of their labor, storing food for the winter, preparing for the quiet months ahead. And in winter, they rested, sitting by the fire, telling stories, dreaming of spring. They spoke to each other with kindness, considered each other's feelings, supported each other in times of difficulty, and celebrated each other's joys. And in this way, through this simple daily practice of love and respect, their bond grew deeper, stronger, more beautiful with each passing season. Then, in the fullness of time, as the cherry blossoms bloomed once more, a litter of little foxes was born to them. Oh, what joy! What celebration! The tiny cubs, no bigger than a man's hand, lay curled together, their eyes still closed, their small bodies warm and perfect. The old grandfather, who had retired to his quiet life, came to see them, and his joy knew no bounds. He gazed at them with wonder, these small miracles, these new lives, and treated them as tenderly as if they had been butterflies or flowers. "They're the very image of their old grandfather," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, as proud as any grandfather could be. He studied each one, noting the particular shade of their fur, the shape of their small ears, the way each one moved. "This one has my white patch," he said, pointing to the smallest cub. "And this one, look at her eyes, just like her grandmother's." The mother fox watched him, tired but happy, seeing how the old one's love flowed down, from generation to generation, like a river that never runs dry. "As for medicine," the grandfather declared, looking at the healthy cubs, "bless them, they're so healthy, they'll never need a copper coin's worth." And indeed, the little foxes thrived, growing stronger each day, opening their eyes to the world, taking their first wobbling steps, discovering the wonders that surrounded them. As soon as they were old enough, when they could walk steadily, when they had been properly instructed in the ways of their kind, they were carried off to the temple of Inari-sama. Inari-sama, the patron saint of foxes, whose shrine stood on the hillside, marked by the red torii gates, that ancient threshold between the earthly and divine. The family made the journey together, climbing the stone steps, passing through gate after gate, each one marking their ascent, their approach to the sacred space. The old grandparents led the way, walking slowly, remembering all the times they had made this journey, for themselves, for their children, and now for their grandchildren. At the shrine, they bowed deeply, offering prayers and thanks, asking for protection for the little ones. "Please," the grandmother whispered, her paws pressed together. "Watch over them, keep them safe from dogs and all the other ills, to which foxflesh is heir." "May they grow in wisdom," the grandfather added. "May they live in peace. May they know joy and contentment. May their paths be smooth." The little cubs, too young to understand fully, nevertheless sensed the solemnity of the moment, and they sat quietly, their small faces serious, as the incense smoke curled upward, carrying their family's prayers to heaven. And so, time continued its endless turning, season following season, year flowing into year, like beads on a string. The white fox, Fukuyémon, who had once been young, by degrees waxed old. Silver appeared in his white fur, giving him a distinguished air, and his movements became slower, more measured, but no less graceful. He had prospered through hard work and honesty, through treating others with respect, through following the old ways. His lands had expanded, his stores were full, his reputation was beyond reproach. But more precious than all of this, more valuable than gold or land or reputation, was his family. For his children, year by year, became more and more numerous around him. The first litter grew, and had cubs of their own, and those cubs grew, and had cubs in turn. The family expanded, like ripples spreading across a pond. Each generation connected to the one before, each one carrying forward the traditions, the values, the love that bound them all together. In spring, they all gathered, 3 generations, sometimes 4, to celebrate the cherry blossoms. They would spread mats beneath the trees and share food and stories, watching the petals fall, like snow in sunshine, like time itself made visible. The old ones would tell tales of the past, of how things used to be, of ancestors long gone, but not forgotten. The young ones would listen, wide-eyed, storing these stories in their hearts, knowing that one day they too would be the old ones, passing wisdom down to those yet to come. And Fukuyémon, sitting in the centre, with his beloved wife beside him, his children and grandchildren around him, would feel his heart swell with gratitude. For this, he knew, this was the true wealth. Not land or gold, not fame or power, but this. These faces he loved, these voices raised in laughter, these bonds that could not be broken. He thought of his father sometimes, the old fox who had given him his inheritance, who had trusted him to carry on, and he hoped, wherever his father's spirit now dwelled, that he was pleased with what his son had made of that trust. He thought of all the generations that had come before, foxes whose names he knew, and foxes whose names had been forgotten, but who had all played their part, had all contributed to this moment, this gathering, this joy. And he thought of all the generations yet to come, cubs not yet born, futures not yet written, and he prayed that they would know, as he had known, this happiness, this peace, this simple gift of family and love. Happy in his family and his business, every recurring spring brought him fresh cause for joy. Each year, when the plum blossoms first appeared, pushing through the last of winter's cold, he felt it anew, that surge of gratitude, that sense of miracle, that life continued, that love persisted, that despite all hardships, all losses, all sorrows, beauty remained. He would stand in his garden in the early morning, watching the mist rise from the valley, listening to the first birds sing, and he would think, "I am blessed." Not because his life had been without sorrow, for there had been losses, as there always are, friends who had passed, children who had not survived their first winter, seasons of hardship and struggle, but because, through it all, he had loved and been loved, had given and received kindness, had lived in harmony with the way of things. His wife would join him sometimes in those early morning contemplations, and they would stand together in comfortable silence, no words needed between those who had shared so much, who had built this life together, stone by stone, moment by moment, day by day. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the conditions were exactly right, when rain fell through sunshine, they would look at each other and smile, remembering their wedding day, that blessed procession, those drops of light falling from a clear blue sky. "The fox's bride goes to her husband's house," they would whisper, and they would think of other young foxes, just beginning their journeys, just discovering what it means to love, to commit, to build a life with another soul. And they would send their blessings, silent and invisible, but real nonetheless, out into the world, hoping that others would find what they had found, this quiet joy, this daily grace, this life well lived. The seasons turned, as seasons do, endlessly, reliably, beautifully. Spring gave way to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, winter to spring again. And with each turning, Fukuyémon grew a little older, a little slower, but not less content. For he understood now what the old ones had always known, that life is not measured in years, but in moments of connection, in acts of kindness, in love given and received. He understood that true wealth, true success, true happiness comes not from what we possess, but from what we share, not from what we achieve alone, but from what we create together. And he understood, most deeply of all, that we are not separate, not isolated, but part of something larger, a web of connection, stretching backward to ancestors we never knew, and forward to descendants we will never meet. Our lives are brief, like cherry blossoms, here for a moment, then falling, returning to earth. But in that brief moment, we can choose, we can love, we can be kind, we can create beauty, we can leave the world a little better, a little softer, a little more full of light. And so the white fox lived, surrounded by love, enriched by connection, grateful for each day. The cubs grew and had cubs of their own, and the garden echoed with their laughter, their play, their joy in simply being alive. The rice fields waved in the wind, golden in autumn, green in spring, and the forest whispered its ancient songs, the same songs it had sung when Fukuyémon was young, the same songs it would sing, long after he was gone. But that, he had learned, was not something to fear, that going, that returning to the earth, that becoming part of the great cycle once more. For nothing truly ends, it only changes, transforms, continues in new forms. The love he felt, it would continue in his children, in their children, in all those who came after. The kindness he had shown, it would ripple outward, touching lives he would never know, in ways he could never imagine. And the peace he had found, the contentment, the joy, it would remain, woven into the fabric of his family, an inheritance more precious than gold, more enduring than stone. In his old age, Fukuyémon would sometimes sit in the same spot where his father had sat, beneath the plum trees, watching the sunset, painting the sky in colours that had no names. And he would think of that young fox, who once shaved his forelock, who once dreamed of a bride, who once stood nervous, waiting for his future to unfold. And he would smile at that young one, so full of hope and fear, so unsure of what lay ahead. "It turned out well," he would whisper to that long-ago self. "You did well, you loved well, you lived well." And the wind would carry his words away, scattering them like seeds, like blessings, like prayers. And so, as the light fades, as the stars begin to appear, one by one, like flowers opening in the night sky, we leave the white fox, surrounded by love, held by family, at peace with the world. The cherry blossoms will fall again, the rain will shine in the sunlight, the foxes will continue their dance, their weddings, their celebrations, their quiet joys. And somewhere, in the hills beyond the village, where the bamboo whispers and the mist gathers at dawn, the story continues, as stories always do, passed from one generation to the next, like light passing from candle to candle, never diminishing, only spreading, only growing, only becoming more beautiful with each telling. And so, the blossoms fall, the night grows still, and peace returns once more.